I'll assume
Yep.
we're ready.
I think we are ready.
We are live. Hey, welcome back to the Lovecraft Eing podcast, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So far, I've got Mark Rainey, Alan Hughes, Matthew Carpenter. Um, what were you complaining about before we went live, Matt?
Actually, I wanted to let you know I'm looking at the YouTube site and nothing's on. Just went on.
Site and nothing's on.
It takes a moment. Yeah,
Okay, it's on.
there's a few seconds of a delay, but thank you. I appreciate
Is that
that.
so you can cut out Matt complaining?
Well, he was complaining about us not being on. I don't. No.
Now I'm complaining for you being on and not letting me know. It's just
Yeah. Well, which brings up the classic. If you can see us and hear us, let us know. I think you can. Let's see here. Yep, you can. Never mind. All right. You were complaining about I never tell you who's going to be on the show or something like that before. Yeah.
Anyway, what I have to share
Look
is
at the calendar. That's what I have to share.
There is a prize for the podcast. There's someone I know who reads more mythos fiction than me. He prefers to remain anonymous. He was in the military. We've sort of been correspondents for years.
I'd remain anonymous too if I was reading Strange Eons.
Right. Well, the thing is, he, unlike me, he doesn't hang on to it. If he reads it, he just sends it off. And for a while now, every few years, he sends me a huge box of books to give away. And there are some issues of Strange Eons in it. So this is issue number 23, which you could win as our prize. All you have to do is send an email to easyandprizes@gmail.com. I would put SA23 in the subject heading. And then we will draw a winner in 6 to 8 weeks. And who knows, it could be you. So that's the prize today, is a very nice copy of Strange Eons that has comics as well as stories.
What does Isabel think of these shipments?
She's thrilled whenever I bring more books into the house.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm sure you all know this, but I'm kidding about Strange Eons. I love Kelly Young. So, yeah, all right. So, Matt, do you want to introduce yourself? And
oh, sure.
You guys watched Starvaker. How was that? Yeah, talk about that too.
All right. I'll wait. We can wait till after the introductions, but I'm Matt Carpenter. Right. I run Lovecraft Eing movie night for Mike, and we'll talk about that after the other minions have been introduced.
Alan?
Whoa, hey, I'm Alan, and I write for the movie and game page for Eing. And I also watched Starvaker last night.
And Mark?
Mark Rainey, horror writer, editor, Eing panelist because Mike begged me to.
Yeah, that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everyone watching live, everyone watching later, everyone listening later. How was Starvaker, Matt and Alan?
Okay, so we've done, I think, over the years, we of course have seen some dogs, but just looking back on our list, it's like we have seen some really great movies. And I think over the last couple of months, we've seen some really good stuff. For example, we saw All You Need Is Death, which is a folk horror movie about a piece of music that should not be listened to. We recently saw No One Gets Out Alive, which was bloody brilliant, about an immigrant woman. She's in the country illegally, and she has to stay in a boarding house where they don't ask too many questions. And the place turns out to be an actual freak show. It's really a great movie. At Mike's behest, we saw Oddity the week before, and this is a really freaky movie as well. Extremely well done. I really like the ending.
Now, did we watch Unwelcome a while back?
Yeah, we watched Unwelcome. That is folk
also another
about this couple moves into a place and they're advised to leave offerings of fresh meat at the end of the lane to keep the little people happy. And well, the little people get unhappy.
Oh, I thought I was the only one. Huh.
But the one we watched last night was Starve Acre. So our vibe is we'll watch Lovecraft adaptations. We like cosmic horror, and folk horror is another one of our big vibes. So this one just started streaming. It's about a couple have a young son, and the son is troubled, acting out, I guess. They bring him to this place, and it is about there's supposedly a portal to some entity that if you can satisfy certain conditions, that entity can be brought forth. Never was clear to me why you would want to do this, but at any rate, I found it extremely unpredictable. I was absorbed throughout. I don't even know if I think it's a great movie. It was just a very unusual, unpredictable plot. You think you know where it's going, and you actually don't.
It's always
The
good.
last scene kind of freaked me out. The last 5 minutes.
So you like the ending of, no spoilers, but you like the ending of Oddity.
The ending, I think, was actually great. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie was the last scene.
That's the only complaint I've seen from some people, and I disagree, as a matter of fact. But I think that this is Monty, everybody.
Hi, Monty.
Why don't you go over there? Okay. Thanks, buddy. I think Oddity is the scariest movie I've seen all year, maybe in several years.
Oh, you have not watched No One Gets Out Alive then?
No, we talked on Friday that I need to see it, remember?
It is really that one. I was on the edge of my seat the whole flick.
All right.
I think everybody, and the thing is, we got this usual crowd of 6 to 10 to 12 people, and I think they've all been digging the shows lately.
Digging the vibe of the shows?
Yeah, but also it's just we've been lucky. We've been in a good streak of movies. I mean, sometime in the past, like we've watched Beast of the Water, which, oh God, was so bad. Which Starfish, which was so overrated, but lately we're at a good streak.
Yeah, Starfish, yeah, that was overrated.
No One Gets Out Alive works so well because you just feel for the main character so much. You just get absorbed into her dilemma.
Yeah. And
then, like, hell, if I knew what the hell was going on, it's got you could even say it's got a very Lovecraftian sensibility.
to Adam Neville, he wrote the Ritual. That was a good movie as well.
Yeah, I love The Ritual.
Which definitely had some Lovecraftian vibes. So anyway, here's an announcement for those who don't know. Alan's artwork here, titled Joe Pulver welcomes Rick Lay to Carcosa. You can get that on a coffee mug. You can get it on a shirt. I have it on a shirt.
Ooh.
And it's one of the first links in the show notes. So it's easy to find. 50% of the proceeds go to the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation. So now and forever. So, and another announcement. Couple of new things, sort of. Now, you guys obviously know that the podcast takes its name from the magazine. When I started all of this in 2011, titled it the Lovecraft Eing, it was an online magazine, and my thought was to bring quality weird fiction and cosmic horror stories that were free to read on the web. And I did that until 2016, and it's a lot of work running a magazine, whether it's quarterly or monthly. It's still a lot of work, and the slush pile it seems like you never get to the bottom of it. So what I am doing though is I'm starting up, I don't know, phase two. If you go to the Lovecraft Eing website, you'll see those. You can still read all those for free, and I've written, I think I retitled it um, Lovecraft Eing Fiction Classic. In other words, the classic magazine. And now, on no regular basis, I'm going to publish a story once in a while. Might be once a month. It might be once every 2 months. But it'll basically be free fiction for you guys to read. Um, I'm not going to name any names, but I've asked some prominent writers if they'd be willing to contribute, and they've said yes. It's invitation only right now. And the other reason why it's not going to be, besides time, why it's not going to be a regular thing, regular monthly thing, it is going to be it is going to be ongoing, is if I do it every once in a while, then I can afford to pay um, pro rates to the writer. So, that's the goal.
That's good news.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get some really good stories that have not been published before. There's some really good new weird fiction stories. Um,
Maybe they can be turned into the haunted library too.
it could be the Weird Library, Bridget's new project. Yeah, she's not here. She's at a convention. She thought she might be able to drop in, but I'm not sure if she's going to be able to or not. But um, she's took over the Weird Library, and she's doing a great job with it. I bit off more than I could chew, and she really wanted to take this on, and is probably doing much better job than I would have done. Um, and she just released another story called Maybe the Stars, and check that out. Just Google the Weird Library. And what else? Last but not least, again on a not regular basis but ongoing, I've got a new playlist on the YouTube channel, and you guys all probably know that I love old time radio, especially horror and detective noir old time radio. So I'm doing a best of horror old time radio playlist. And I've got one on there, and there's a lot out there that you can listen to for free on the web. I've been listening since I was 8 or 9 years old, so I think I'm qualified to pick out some of the best out there and kind of help you wade through all of them to listen to the cream of the crop, you might say. So check that out too. It's free. Just another
So
playlist on this channel.
you mentioned conventions, and there
Mhm.
is something I think we need to mention, which is on October 4th to 6th is the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter is ongoing. Um, if you can't go to the convention, you can buy a streaming pass, which takes place a few weeks later. If you can go, you don't need to. If you want to make it a last minute thing, there are probably going to be day passes available. But this is a way you can actually, maybe it'll cost you a little more money, but you can support the convention itself so they can afford to bring in better artists and better movies. But it's currently ongoing on Kickstarter. And you can also go to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival homepage, look at the Portland event.
Do you have the Kickstarter page up? If you do, maybe you could paste the link into the side chat.
I will.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What else? I think that's yeah, but you've got a book coming out soon, Mark. You want to talk about that briefly?
Sure. This one is called A House at Blacktooth Pond, which will be coming out from Crossroad Press probably before the end of the year. Not sure of the exact release date yet, but it's going into production very soon, I know. And it is sort of an indirect sequel to my second novel from way back when called the Lebo Coven, Lebo. So Crossroad has, as of yesterday or the day before yesterday, re-released Lebo Coven as a paperback. So
Oh,
the Kindle version is only $2.99, and the paperback has just been posted on Amazon. So I can throw up a link to that if you're interested.
yeah, that'd be great. If you want to do that in the YouTube
We'll
side
do it.
chat, that would be awesome. Now, I have another announcement, and let's start off with a question. I'd like to know what kind of, I need you guys' opinion on this. What kind of wuss uses getting a tramp stamp to avoid coming on the show?
Our
I
kind of
mean,
wuss.
right, exactly. Apparently, Pete Rollick got a tattoo today. And he really should not have told us this before the show, because, he had to know we would talk about it. What do you get? He got a reanimator syringe. That's what he got. He sent us a picture.
Yes, okay. It's like, I don't know. I'm ancient, okay. I'm from the era when the only men who are allowed to wear earrings were gypsies and pirates. The only people who got tattoos were sailors and bikers. This is just me seeing old sailors in the clinic many decades after the World War had ended, and seeing what had become of their tattoos, and how they had sort of faded and sagged, and I guess no longer had the bright colors. Or so there's the sailor I saw. He had been in World War II, and I had to examine him, so I had him take off his shirt, and he had these two native girls on his chest, and his nipples were their mouths.
Oh, jeez.
And they had
Classy.
faded to, it was like it's kind of like, I don't know what it originally was, but it was kind of like this faded blue ink, sort of. The ladies didn't look so great anymore, I guess, sagging over his belly. It's like,
I didn't ask him where he got it. Presumably on his forearm or his bicep. I don't
It
know.
was on his hand. It looked like he posted a photo of it just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell where it was.
So I kind of
I think
question if
that's around kind of where you'd find the kicker man in Paul
why would someone get a
Wilson's.
tattoo on their hand, for fuck's sake? That's something.
I know, man. See, now how can you go wrong with that? I told him he should get one like that.
These
See,
are all
if you had to
important
wear
questions.
if you had to wear a coat and tie and go into a business meeting, you'd look very professional.
So I'm thinking, like, if Pete gets
you may be
pulled
overly
over,
complimentary there.
if Pete gets pulled over, the police are going to kind of be wondering why he's got a syringe tattooed on his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That might get a search of your car.
Well, if any, all these questions are important, and if any more occur to you this week, write them down so we can. I'll ask Pete next Sunday about this. So, of course, everyone knows the story of him going to see Reanimator. I don't need to tell that for the 100th time, do I? No? Yes?
Sure.
Now, the short version is that he stole his grandma's car to go see Reanimator. But I think he returned it when he was done. So
it was
borrowed.
He just borrowed.
Borrowed without asking, I think is probably more accurate. So if you want reminders about upcoming guests and reminders of live events and things like that, you can get on the email list, and that's pretty high up in the show notes as well. I probably 1 to 2 emails a week is usually the max, so you don't have to worry about getting spammed, and you can unsubscribe anytime. And on that same note, there's also a link to the Lovecraft Eing calendar, which you can subscribe to if you want. It'll show the times in Eastern, I think, but if you subscribe to it, which I don't know how this works, then I think it'll convert to your local time. But I write the guest names on the Sunday show, on the Sunday events. So if it says Lovecraft Eing podcast and it doesn't have a guest, it means we're having an episode, just no podcast. And by episode, I don't mean we're going crazy. I mean one of these episodes.
Same
And
thing, isn't it?
well, yeah. And last but not least, if you want to help the show, please become a patron. It's only $5 a month, and you get a ton of stuff. And if you're doing that, and you want to help the show some more, and not spend any money, reviewing us on Apple will help the show a lot overall, whether you listen on Apple or not. And commenting on YouTube helps a lot. I love the live side comments, but please keep doing that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the comments beneath the show, which you can do later. Anytime that you're watching this episode, you could be watching it a year from now, and you can comment. That'll help the algorithm, I guess. So Alan, did you see that Collider article? No, you didn't. I did. Yeah. About the Penguin show. It's on 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, I missed that. What was that?
That was it. It's 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. The other thing is the critics have seen all episodes, not just the first couple. So they're
What Penguin show?
The
Colin Farrell.
the Batman spinoff.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
thought
did
it was about
see
some penguin like bravely protecting its eggs in Antarctica or something.
It could be the Mountains of Madness penguin, which actually they did a Lovecraftian Batman story where the penguin went to Antarctica.
Yeah, the Doom that came to Gotham.
Yeah, it's a great.
I did see a story that Colin Farrell, who plays the Penguin, under a ton of makeup and a fat suit, can I say that word? He was says he's not going. He does not want to do it again.
It's got to be hotter than hell wearing that thing.
I mean, it's practically a full face mask.
Then it'll do well, and they'll throw a bunch of money at him, and he'll do it again.
Yeah, so it's a negotiating tactic.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't gonna watch this. I wasn't gonna watch this, but now I'll have to check it out. No, I do not have a tattoo, Chaz. Thanks for asking. So, all right. I guess I didn't know this until today, but there's a new Salem's Lot movie coming out next month on Max,
So I hear.
formerly
Who's gonna
HBO.
be, do you know anything details like who's directing it? Who's in it? Is it a series?
It's
a movie.
been out. It's been completed in the can for about 2 years.
Oh, really?
That's not a good sign.
Well, it was a movie that was Warner Brothers. It was one of those movies that they were debating about whether just to throw it away and take the tax write-off on it.
Wow, that's
what they
not a
did
good
with
sign either.
Batgirl.
They did that for Batgirl. They did that for a Looney Tunes movie. And but I think it probably would have hurt the relationship with Stephen King, and a lot of other people said it was a good movie. So it's coming to streaming. It's got Bill Pullman's son in it. He was in Top Gun Maverick.
Do you know anything else about it? Like who directed or scripted?
Gary Doberman. I don't know who that is, and it's set in 1975, incidentally. So, I don't know. I watched the trailer today, and it looks pretty good, as far as you can tell by trailers. And I know I say don't watch horror movie trailers, but the ones I don't really care about, I sometimes watch to see if it looks interesting or not. Yeah, Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Pullman. They changed the doctor character to a female. It's Alfre Woodard's playing her.
Oh, okay. I was wondering who she was playing.
Yeah.
And that I see that they have the same eyes as the 1979 movie, The Vampire Eyes. It looks really cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, we don't talk about the Rob Lowe Salem Lot, Kim. We never speak of that again. Did you guys see that? 2004.
Yeah, I did once and have never watched it again. Probably never will.
That was
have you listened
horrible.
to the BBC audio production?
Yeah, that's
Uh-uh.
great.
That is excellent.
That's really good. You can hear that for free on YouTube, by the way. I don't know if that's legit or not, but it's got some pretty scary, tense moments. You know, really good audio drama. So, what else we got here? We're going to talk to Patrick Barb in a few minutes. There's a movie called Believer that I'm going to check out tonight, and it's on. I guess it's on video on demand now.
It's not Believer, the Justin Bieber story.
Believer, no, it's not. That would be even more horrific. I don't know. It looks pretty good. A struggling writer finds herself at the center of the story she is covering when brutally attacked by a notorious cult leader. Notorious cult leader. Are there any non-notorious cult leaders? And mass murderer. He is notorious. A man who exerts an inexplicable control over his followers. That's why he's a cult leader. And one more movie that I missed out on. It's called Strange Darling. Now, this is one that I heard was extremely good and was only in select theaters up until just the other day. And I was going to go see it like Monday or Tuesday, and it's gone already, and you can't get it on streaming until October. What did I say? Strange Darling? What did I say?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. It looks really good. So I don't know if anyone out there has seen it, but
Just so you know, Laird Barron's collection, Not a Speck of Light, has finally started shipping from the publisher. If you pre-ordered, you should have had your copy, but you certainly can still order it direct from the publisher's website.
yeah, and Brian Evanson's book he's got a new book out too, called Good Night, Sleep Tight, which I'm currently reading right now, and you guys need to read it, really. It's seriously good. I'm talking to him about getting him on soon. So next couple of weeks we'll have him on, probably during the week. So Matt, you don't look very excited today.
This is how I always look.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Here, I can fix it though. Watch.
Much better. That is much better.
Yeah, I feel far more excited about that. Oh, well,
This
not
is happy
anymore.
face.
Not anymore.
So I'm in the middle of rereading. I'm rereading Lord of the Rings for I don't know how many times, and it's just for me. It's one of those comfort food type of books, and along with Charles Grant's books are kind of comfort food for me. Ray Bradbury, um, Lawrence Block, and I was wondering. I asked you guys about that in an email, so I was wondering if you guys would talk about some of your favorite comfort food books. So, Alan, I know you have some.
Yeah, probably The Man in the High Castle. And that's something I go back to every few years. It's a pretty short book, not like Lord of the Rings.
No.
So I can do it in an afternoon. And but the thing about it, there's just always something in there I discover each time I reread it, something else I pick up on. That's
What is it about Man in the High Castle that is comforting and enjoyable enough that you return to it again and again?
well, probably the first time I read it, it was just the alternate history.
Yeah.
You know, that's a interest of mine. Alternate histories, Harry Turtle Dove books, and so that was the surface reading. And then when you get into it, there is the subtext about what is real, what is fiction, you know, and just I think it was probably not until the third time I read it that you know, I hit on this idea that the characters realize that they are just stories in a book.
Yeah.
And so that's an important angle for rereading a book, is there's something new to find out.
Philip
I
K.
just
Dick was really good at that. He was very interested in what is reality over and over in his books. Matt, sorry.
there's a really good comic book graphic novel series that touches on the importance of stories and how stories can shape reality. It's called The Unwritten. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think I have.
It is an absolute treat. It's almost like the main character, his father wrote a series of books where essentially they used, I forget, it's been so long since I read the thing straight. It's like he used his son's persona in the books, and now his son is like essentially forced to eke out a living going to cons, talking to crazy fans. And he gets caught up on what is the nature of a story, and are the stories suddenly shaping his reality. And it takes there's like, I guess, 8 or 9 compiled novels, compiled graphic novels to tell it's a whole story arc. It's not an open-ended thing. If you I just thought the way you were describing that, the characters knowing they're just in a story, you might really like The Unwritten.
Okay, I'll find that.
I remember when I read it, it was strikingly original. The guy who did it, let me see, he, I think, is the guy who wrote Highest House. He's really very original. It's let me see, who is this? It's by Mike Carey. You might recognize the name.
He did Lucifer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucifer and Hellblazer. Okay.
It's nothing like those. It's just I've never read anything like it in terms of a graphic novel before.
Okay. It's from DC's Black Label. I need to check that out.
There's with that theme, there's a really great short story in a collection called Strange Little Horrors and Other Stories by Amy Cross. And the story in fact, it's on Kindle Unlimited. The story that I'm referring to is called Sitcom. And I really can't say anything about it, otherwise I'm going to take away the pleasure of discovery with this story. But it's one of the best stories I've ever read in this vein. So again, it's called Sitcom. The short story is called Sitcom, and it's in a collection titled Strange Little Horrors and Other Stories. The writer is Amy Cross. So check that out. Mark.
Yeah, I had written you in the email. I think for a long time it was The Exorcist, because I read The Exorcist when I was, I think, 14, right about the time the movie came out, and I didn't see the movie for several years afterwards. But that book scared me so bad, almost from the opening paragraph. It just creeped me out. And over the years, though, I got to where I just love the characters and the dialogue and the different points of view. So whenever I just wanted a refresher on, storytelling and a lot of great stuff, I'd return to The Exorcist. I probably read that 4 or 5 times over the years, and then fairly recently, sometime early last year, I guess it was, I found the audio book of it that Willie Peter Blatty reads, and he's a damn good reader. So really enjoyed that. But in later years, I started. I read The Ceremonies a couple of times by T.E.D. Klein, and I've read The Events at Forest Farm from what that sprang from, and so I probably read The Ceremonies 3 times over a period of about 10 or 12 years, partly because so much of the setting involves the main character staying out in the sticks in this little religious community. He lives in an outbuilding with only screens for windows, and the dark woods press against that building, and it just makes him horribly uncomfortable. And when I was a kid, I'd sleep on my grandparents' back porch sometime, and I got that same feeling because the trees and the dark woods, press close. So it was actually sort of a sense of familiarity. And so I always enjoyed going back, and it's such an involved story. I mean, it's a big, big book, and I found it on audiobook just quite recently. So I'm nearing the end of listening to that on audiobook as we speak.
Speaking of T.E.D. Klein, and I was going to mention this anyway, but this just happened 2 days ago. Cadabra Records puts out books too. I assume everybody knows this, but they have just put out Dark Gods, and there's a $200 edition, which is sold out already, and a $100 edition. Sorry, let me read this email from them. Limited to 500 copies and split between 3 bindings: Standard Deluxe, Slipcase Edition, and Lettered Clamshell Edition. Let's see what they have. I don't know, where did I see what they? Oh, okay, right here. It is difficult to overestimate the impact these tales made as they appeared one by one in anthologies starting in 1979 and culminating in the novella that capped the collection in 1985. Taking the mayor's hints from Machen and Lovecraft, Klein develops realms of an inexorable, insidious threat, which his cast of otherwise ordinary people either never suspected or failed to recognize until it is too late. Of course, it has the 4 novellas. Let's see: Black Man with a Horn, Children of the Kingdom, Petey, and what's the other one?
Nadelman's Guide.
Right. This edition has interior art by Jonathan Dennison, dust jacket art by Paul Romano, essay by, I'm not going to say this correctly, Dejan Ogjavnik.
I'm sure that's right.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. New introduction by S.T. Joshi, and it looks really fabulous. If I had money, I would be buying this. Let me post this in the live stream for anyone who does want to buy it. But I wanted to let everyone know about that. So, Matt, you have any comfort food?
Well, I did want to share a story for Mark. I don't know if this is apocryphal because it was a story that was circulating on the internet. Might not even be true. But there's this guy who said his aunt was reading The Exorcist and found it so disturbing that she just went and threw it in the river because she didn't want it in the house anymore. When he saw that, he went to a used bookstore, bought a copy, dipped it in a bucket of water, and put it in the drawer on her nightstand.
I think you may
That's
have
awesome.
shared that with me before, but that, yeah,
Oh my God,
that's hysterical.
I hope it's true.
I hope so too.
But oh wait, is that Bridget? Yay!
It is, and her kitty.
Oh, Bridget, hey.
Hello. Since Pete couldn't be here today, I thought I'd be in the tradition of lounging on a couch with a pillow and a blanket and
Oh, you do that well.
bonus cat.
You're doing that at the convention?
No, the convention got over earlier than I thought, thank goodness, but we still had to get home and unload, and now I'm exhausted and don't have much of a voice, but I thought I'd pop in for a little bit.
No, good to see you. Patrick will be here in a few minutes. You wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
How was the
Yeah.
convention?
It was awesome. So I was at the Tidewater Horror Convention, which is in this area of Virginia Beach, Norfolk, whatnot. So it was really cool to meet some local vendors and some local people. And my table was right across from Mark Sieber, who says hi to you, Mark Rainey.
Well, that's
So you guys
very
were by
nice.
each other on at AuthorCon.
Yeah, Mark and I go way back.
Yeah, he and Claire were super sweet, and it was really nice to meet them. And it was just, yeah, good to hang out and get the word out about
And
the
it was
weird
mighty
library.
nice to see you and Mike last week in
Yeah,
Elizabeth City. That was a fun brewery, it turned out. I did a group
was.
book signing in Elizabeth City, North Carolina last week at a brewery, and it turned out to be really, really good. You know, some of these non-traditional venues for book signings have really worked in my favor lately. I guess because they don't know me at those places.
I can't imagine Rodders and beer mixing very well, but
Impulse buys.
yeah.
But yeah, now we know a cool brewery down in Elizabeth City. So
Yeah.
bonus.
Looks like your cat's glad to see you.
Yeah, we've been gone most of the weekend, so Boulder is very happy, huh, Boulder?
Oh,
Talked about the weird library a little bit ago too. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just super excited to get the episode loaded on Thursday, and already got a little bit of traffic on it, but got the word out, and just, yeah, it's exciting. I've got a schedule to try and post every 2 weeks from now until I've got stories from now until almost December. So I'm just looking at stuff for, that onward,
yeah,
which is awesome.
that's awesome.
It's a good place to be. In fact, Mark Rainey's got a story coming up in there too.
Never mind.
Never mind. Never mind what? You're not going to listen now.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna listen. Yep, definitely.
might turn Mike's hair white.
I
Yeah.
just want to say a quick thank you before we move on to something else. Just thanks to everybody who's been so supportive so far, and
Oh, of
it's
course.
really cool. Enjoy doing it.
I'm glad you're doing it. Mike Flanagan says, speaking of The Exorcist, Mark.
Yeah.
Mike
yeah.
Flanagan says that his new Exorcist movie is the scariest movie he's ever made.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that because I've liked all the series that he's done, and after that last, was it Exorcist Believer? That was so awful. I'll never watch that again. It would be nice to see the franchise actually have something worthwhile put into it.
Well, if it's Flanagan, so I'm sure it's going to be good.
Is this going to bump back his Dark Tower even further?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's taken on a lot.
Apparently, he really went after The Exorcist. He really wanted to do it. So.
Is the Dark Tower going to be one movie or more? I haven't heard about that.
I think it's a TV show for Amazon.
Oh,
Okay,
sweet.
well,
Okay.
I hope they do as good a job as they do with Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time. Oh, wait.
Matt.
Those aren't Flanagan, though, in all fairness. I did hear that the second season to Rings of Power is better, but
It's abysmal.
the bar is low.
Go rewatch the original trilogy, Lord of the Rings, by Peter Jackson. And
I don't need to be pressured into
pretend
that.
Jeff Bezos never heard the words Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The thing is, who's the woman who plays Galadriel? I've seen her in 2 horror movies in the last 2 months. She's a good actress. I don't know what it's got to be the script.
3 counting Rings of Power.
she's been in 2 great movies, you know. It's like, so it's like she was in Starvacre, and she played a
Oh, she
really good
was?
part.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
she played the wife, the mother of the little boy who died. It's like, and she did really good showing grief, and then she showed a turn towards the weird.
Yeah, I don't think it's the actors. I don't think that's the problem with the
Anyway,
Rings of
I
Power.
really, if they make the Dark Tower as like a 7-season TV series, I'd be all over that.
There's a that there's potentially a lot of money to be made there, and a lot of entertainment value for fans if done right.
Yeah, and thank God, you know, because I was worried about Stephen King if he'd have enough for his old age.
Hmm. Well, he can
So
stick
is
this in his retirement
Starvacre,
fund.
did you say it's currently streaming?
Yeah, it's on Prime. It costs like $3 or $4 to rent.
Oh, okay. Because I was just looking it up and I didn't
It,
see where it might be streaming right here.
it's on Prime.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
If you wait a few
Hello.
months, it might be less even.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome. How are you?
Doing well. Been a nice weekend and capping it off with whatever ensues here. So,
It was nice, and now it's gone downhill, right?
you know, we'll make do.
So Patrick has a new book out called The Children's Horror, right?
Yep.
Sorry,
Um,
Wooler.
you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about this new book, because we had you on a while back
Yeah.
with the other collection.
Yeah. So I'm Patrick Barb. I am primarily a horror writer of weird fiction, dark fantasy, basically anything that's weird and dark and spooky. Had a couple of books published. My last collection was pre-approved for Haunting. I was on here chatting with everybody about that collection. And the new collection is the children's horror cursed episodes for doomed adults. And um, around 2020, when the pandemic was going on, I was home with my kids, who at the time were 5 and 3 or 2, and had a lot of TV to watch with them because there wasn't much to do back then with a preschooler and a toddler, and so we ended up watching a lot of TV shows, like a lot of kids shows, and so I had this idea to write a collection of taking these TV shows that I'd watched with the kids over and over again and sort of twisting the premises or kind of finding a way to take things in a kind of weird direction. And the result was collection here, the children's horror, which came out in July from Northern Republic Press. And so basically it is 10 stories taking kind of popular kids TV shows from the last like few years and also some things from my childhood as well, and sort of taking a weird, darker twist on them.
Yeah, and Clay McLeod Chapman introduced it.
Yeah, Clay's did the forewarning,
Forewarning,
so
right?
the forward for this one, and he's, you know, he did it with all the aplomb and bombast that you would expect from Clay. I don't know if anybody's seen him do a reading, but he gives it 127,000% on those. And you know, I told him, once I read the forewarning, I said, you know, this is the one time when I would ask you to do a live reading of your forward. I want to see what you would do with it.
Yeah, because he talks about the signal hacking in 1986,
Yeah.
HBO.
Yeah, the Max Headroom kind of hacking, which I was only, to age everybody else, I was only 4 at the time when this happened, and sorry, and it, I knew about it though from internet stuff and then reading these sort of like urban legend and kind of like except it actually happened. And so that makes it even
what exactly
stranger.
happened? Because I didn't have a TV, so
Yeah, it was someone had, I forget what the market was, if it was Los Angeles or Philadelphia, but they basically hacked into the the broadcast signal, and it was somebody dressed up like Max Headroom, and they were saying some weird things. I think that's, I mean, that's all I know about it, but even just that is enough to just like be unsettling. And like if it was more to it, I feel like you would have more context and it would kind of be explained away, but it just was never explained as far as I know.
Yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, that's in his forewarning. And he's got some nice things to say about you, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you luck out sometimes. People say people say nice things. It's always, I'm always happy to see it and happy to have, you know, the support of folks who I admire and whose work I'm really a fan of.
I like this. I've had the good fortune of meeting Patrick Barb in person. We've hung out at literary events where this not the case, and I'd simply been giving this book to read. I might not believe that Patrick Barb was in fact a real person. I might say he's the man hiding behind the Max Headroom mask, forcing his way onto the airwaves and into my mind. He is the signal intrusion. So that's a forward that just screams, read this book.
Yeah, I mean, you luck out sometimes. You get somebody saying something like that, and I hope the stories live up to it. You know.
Well, Bridget, well, when Bridget gets back, I know she wanted to talk to you about pre-proof for haunting as well. But
Sure.
talk about the setup for the stories and the first, I guess the wraparound story in this.
Yeah. So the children's horror is both the collection title and it's the title of the frame story for the collection, and that one was less based on the kids TV that my kids were watching recently, and more based on my own childhood. I went to a small elementary school where this was in the 80s into the 90s, and when we had testing, they would just take us all into the auditorium. They would wheel out the cart with the the AV setup, and they would just show us cartoons to entertain us while other kids were testing. They couldn't test everybody all at once.
Oh, okay.
And so it always was just struck me as this kind of strange setup. You just have a bunch of kids and you're just showing them cartoons in school. And it wasn't like educational cartoons. It was like Alvin and the Chipmunks and G.I. Joe or Smurfs or whatever, something like that. And so
they really wanted to keep you guys in there.
They just want to keep us in there and keep us occupied. And I do remember one time they brought us in to show us in the 1980s, I think maybe it was the early 90s, as part of like the Reagan, Bush kind of just say no to drugs sort of push. They did this movie with all of the popular cartoon characters of the time. So it was like the Smurfs and the Ninja Turtles and Bugs Bunny and Garfield, and everybody was teaming up to stop kids from doing drugs. And it looked like the trippiest thing you've ever seen, and probably felt more like doing drugs than anything you could ever imagine.
And it worked because no kids did drugs.
No kids have ever done drugs since then. It stopped. That was it.
Yeah.
And so I remember that moment, and I wanted to kind of capture it. So the main story has these two kindergarten teachers, and the children start to change, and there is a kind of cosmic-y horror element that is controlling the kids and bringing in the creepy kid kind of trope, and they take them into this auditorium where they wheel out the cart with the VCR and the TV, and they show them these cartoons, and these cartoons are the kind of corrupted signal version of the popular shows from today, or popular kind of memes and things like that as well. And that's where the collection kind of frames from.
Patrick, that framing story is excellent. I'm a high school teacher, and you perfectly captured why I'm not an elementary school teacher.
I hear you. It's I remember it being a wild time. My boys are both now in elementary school, and God bless all the teachers. That's all I say. My mom was a third grade teacher, so she was she was in the trenches, so to speak. And my sister was a kindergarten teacher for a few years before she stayed home to raise her own kids. So yeah, I know my family has deep roots in the education system.
You captured it well.
Thank you.
Bridget, you had some questions or comments for Patrick, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've been listening to Pre-Approved for Hunting on my commutes on my audiobook, and it's really great. I'm enjoying a lot. I thought that it was really neat how different narrators narrated different stories too, and different voices, and I just really liked your story and our next guest. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was really Turner Publishing Keylight Books. They did the pre-approved, and Dreamscape Audio, I want to say, is who did the audiobook, and I was really impressed with the using the different narrators and kind of different voices for the stories, because I do try to vary things up and have different like points of view and perspectives and kind of voices, old, young, etc. And so having the different narrators, I think they're really made a difference, and I was impressed with it as well.
Because that doesn't happen a lot. I mean, with Stephen King's collections, sure, but using different narrators in a short story collection is wonderful but unusual.
Yeah, you know, I had nothing to do with the choice, and they didn't kind of run much by me, which in some cases can be a disaster. In other cases, like this, you luck out.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, we got an audiobook. And I said, great. And then they said, here it is. And I said, awesome. It's not bad. So, you know, that's a plus, right?
Yes. No, but your writing is really good, and a lot of times I can kind of tell where a story is going, but I love that with your stories. It's just a very interesting capture of things that often go places I never would have imagined, and it's pretty rare for me to go, what in the hell is going on, in a good way. So
Yeah, I mean, I try, you know, I feel like I come from like a lot of different, I always draw from the different influences I have. So TV, books, obviously, but you know, cartoons I grew up with, comic books. I was a big comic book reader growing up, still am. It's not a hobby I can support, but while also reading books, I've found, so I have to kind of balance it out. But you know, you pull from those different mediums and genres, and you know, hopefully what comes out is both able to be followed, but also provides kind of a unique spin on things in the telling of the tale.
DC Comics or Marvel?
More DC now. I was a Marvel kid growing up. In the 80s, they had the Sears catalog around Christmas time. They did the Marvel box, and I know a lot of kids from the 80s and 90s that had these things, and it was like a bunch of comics from like 83 through 89 or something like that. And I was hooked at that point. I was an X-Men kid. I was the, you know, Spider-Man. But since then, I've moved more towards the Batman and Superman and Justice League side of things.
Well, I know what you mean about it being, they're expensive because you can spend $5 on a comic book and read it in 15 minutes. And I just, that's a lot of money for a short entertainment time, you might say.
Yeah.
But if you're a DC fan, I found DC Universe Infinite is really
Yep.
affordable, and I'm reading so many comics that I would never have gotten the chance to read otherwise. You know.
Yeah, I was actually talking another author that lives here in the Twin Cities, Carson Winter, and he was just getting into comics. He'd never read them before until now, and I was like, "How have you never read The Dark Knight Returns?" But welcome. And he got the subscription. He was saying, "Yeah, I'm just reading all these things like the Spectre, and
Oh
okay, you gotta
yeah.
read the Question, like all these like '80s class, like the Denny O'Neil Batman and all this stuff." And
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, that's what I mean, whether it's comics or movies or books, I love evangelizing to a degree about these things and sharing them with people, not with like an insistent kind of quality of like you need to read this, but like more like I really dug this and I think you would dig this as well. I think that's just a big part of growing, you know, the genre, the mediums and things, is getting people to try new things that you like.
Yeah. There's so many comics that I read as a kid that I'm able to reread now. Like I'm currently rereading The Question from the late 80s.
Yeah.
The Question series. It's fabulous. But yeah, they've got a ton on there. I hope they never stop
I
the
might have to
service.
check that out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really good. Um,
Does
Yeah.
the sorry for
no, please go ahead.
does the DC, does it have the letters page or the editorials at the end of the question, the columns that Denny O'Neil wrote? He suggested so many good books in that, and that would be a great thing to go back and find.
I don't think so, but that would be cool. Yeah.
That's my favorite part. The Marvel, um, I don't know, the Masterworks or one of the reprint series they have. It's like the old Fantastic Four, so like the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby ones, and they reprint the letters pages with all those. Same thing with the Amazing Spider-Man ones, and it's so great. I think at least with the FF ones, I know there is a George R. R. Martin fan letter from when he was a young, like a kid or a teenager, writing into
That's cool.
the Fantastic Four letter page. I'm always like scanning the names to like see if I recognize anyone who went on to do more things.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, if you are a DC fan, you should check that out. Check that out. DC Universe Infinite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bridget, anything else? Because I know you want to go soon. Or are you good?
I wish I could think of more eloquent questions. I'm just tired right now, but
Yeah, big weekend.
just praise for your work, Patrick. That's all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
What you mentioned being inspired by various books and so forth. What are some of your inspirations growing up and today? What books have you read lately that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, it's a
So
great. I mean,
two-part
because
question, I guess.
to start, I came into horror fiction, I think probably by way of The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. Was probably like the big thing for me. And Clive Barker's Books of Blood was another big one. And then I came into Stephen King with The Stand and didn't read as much as some other people have until more recently, when I had to like go back and kind of explore his back catalog and kind of catch up that way. And that was kind of it. Like I was more into like the dark fantasy kind of thing. So if you go with Clive Barker, Magica, those kind of books of his that trend more towards the dark fantasy side of things. Was reading a lot of that, but horror was always a part of what I was watching. I was a big fan of like the '90s slashers. I kind of got into it like with Scream, and then also went back and watched all like the Friday the 13th, Halloween's, etc. And I had a coworker. I worked at Starbucks in high school and college, and I had a friend who was getting rid of all of his horror DVDs, and it was everything, like anything you could think, like foreign stuff. It was Vincent Price movies and everything, and he would just sell them to me for like a couple bucks. And I'd come, get my tips and say, all right, let's get some movies. But I wasn't reading as much, but I wanted to write, and I worked in publishing for about 14 years, book publishing. I did textbooks, I did academic publishing, and I was in trade publishing, working on graphic novels. And the opportunity came to go freelance and have more time to work on my writing and also to work on my reading, because I really felt like I'd heard about a bunch of folks who were, working in horror and working in these kind of spaces, and I wanted to do a kind of catch up. And so I think one of the first collections that I read, like 18, 19, when I was kind of getting back into things, was Laird Barron's Swift to Chase. And that one just blew me away at the time. And I've gone back and read all of his collections since then, and that one was such a weird experience. It's such, like, the way the stories kind of flow into one another, and I kind of thought, okay, this is something that's really cool, and I can grab onto this and kind of find a new way to kind of tell these stories, and they don't have to be the kind of set up punchline Twilight Zone kind of Tales from the Crypt kind of stories, and that led me to down a rabbit hole of all these other people, John Langan and Kelly Link and Stephen Graham Jones and all these other people, and then doing my own writing and getting the chance to meet a lot of these folks and interact with them and work with them as well has been something fantastic. So that's kind of the lead up. And as far as what I'm reading lately, to go back to Laird, I'm reading the Not a Speck of Light. I just got that in earlier this week, and like I said, it was his collection was one of the first ones that kind of grabbed a hold of me in the more kind of modern era, whatever you want to call it. And so I had to put down whatever else I was reading at the time and tackle that one.
Yeah, way before I met Laird, I came across Occultation and Imago Sequence and read those two collections, and they were at the time unlike anything I'd read before in horror. I had to actually, some of the stories I felt were so disturbing to me that I had to set the book aside, and then I'd come back to it a day or two later, which is, I mean that in the best way,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, it's just, I think he does menace very well, in a sense of, like, different from horror. I think, like, menace, this sense of, like, dread that's in the fiction, and a lot of these writers that I've found that can capture that emotion. I read a horror movie. That's the other book I've just read recently, the Paul Tremblay. And I found, like, it's a different kind of approach in a lot of ways, I think, to the way Laird writes, but there's also this sense of, like, unease. And I love that sense of, like, just kind of like the back of your brain kind of warning of something is not right, sort of that sense of, like, something's not right when you're reading it.
Brian Evanson's really good at that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Black Bark, I think, is one of my all-time favorite short stories, and that one does it in spades for sure.
Yeah, that sense of dread, where, yeah, you put it very well. Any other questions you guys have for Patrick? Matt's still here.
Sorry, I was muted.
Mm.
The thing that happened to me with reading Laird Barron was no idea who the guy was. I came across, I don't even know if it was in one of his collections or if it was in an anthology. It was Old Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And it just freaking blew me away. I had not read anything that just got under my skin like that for a while in Lovecraftian type fiction, even though it's like his own thing. It's the same sensibilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that was very striking. I also just got Not a Speck of Light, and I'm sort of like reading a story a day to sort of stretch it out. I don't want to, like, just sit there and try and devour it. That doesn't work for me with his stories.
No, I get that. I am kind of maybe one or two a day, just fitting the time in, because I do have the kids. They come off the bus and they all of a sudden they want you to interact with them and play with them and feed them. That's all a thing.
Just so you know, later on in life, they still expect you to feed them.
Geez, now you tell me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like waiting for them to just be able to access the cupboards themselves. I'm like, hey, you guys go ahead. You can get whatever fruit snacks and granola bars and whatnot. Once you're tall enough, I'm out. I'm you know, unless it involves the stove, I'll handle that from there.
I have a
Donna,
question, Patrick.
yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you put the notes at the end
Yeah.
about what cartoons not to watch.
Yes.
My kids are a little older than yours, so I wasn't familiar with some of those. Any cartoons that not quite made the cut that you were thinking about including?
You know, I started this project in, I want to say it was like 21 or 22 for NaNoWriMo before NaNoWriMo became verboten, and all the trouble it's had now. And I didn't want to write a novel. I just don't have I feel like I'm a fairly disciplined writer, but the idea of writing a whole novel in 1 month is just too much for me to do. But I said I can do short stories. I can do a mini kind of collection of short stories. And I started telling people about it though. And of course, what happens is when you mentioned other parents, like, hey, I'm writing this collection of stories inspired by kids shows, is that everybody has that one show that they hate because their kid watches it more than anything else. And people are like, you got to do Blippi and you got to do Kylo and you got to do. And I was like, well, my kids don't watch those shows, so that's your cross to bear, my friend. That's you can write that collection yourself. So like with this one, it's really, my kids they're still really into Pokemon. There is a kind of Pokemon story, for legal purposes, we'll say, close enough. Paw Patrol, things like Clifford, which I grew up with, obviously, and like I knew Clifford, Big Red Dog, and I also there's a story in there that is kind of a TGIF Friday night sitcom inspired ones from my childhood. So like Your Family Matters, your Step by Step, your Full House, and things like that. And so I wanted to kind of do a story that was like a weird take on that as well. So yeah, people definitely came to me with other ideas, and I've heard from other people. It's every parent has a different experience of what their kids are watching and what those shows are that.
Okay, I got a
Too
pathetic
much.
one. Okay, so
Sure.
when my kids were little, the Teletubbies first came over from Britain.
Ah,
God.
And so like I actually knew all the songs and dances, but like at one point, like we're in there, we're watching another round of the Teletubbies, and I'm sitting there and I'm just watching the show, and I look, my kids had gotten so bored they had wandered away. And I'm sitting there watching the Teletubbies by myself.
I have gotten caught watching my kids' shows more than a couple of times, I will say. And with Teletubbies, you got the little baby in the sun. If that's not a cosmic horror kind of entity, I don't know what is.
That is
Have you
one
ever
weird
seen the
show.
Teletubbies in the black and white version on YouTube with the scary music?
No, but that sounds
Talk
sounds
about
incredible.
cosmic horror. It's bloody brilliant.
It's terrifying. Yeah, there are
That I have
actually
to
a group
see.
of people dressed up as like Teletubbies with zombie faces at the con this weekend. It was
Really?
pretty.
Oh,
Yeah.
Patrick, I heard you mention the Smurfs early in there. When you did, my blood pressure just shot up because my daughter used to watch the Smurfs all the time, and I swore I never even wanted to hear of them again. So you scared me already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I grew up in Virginia, and so we would go to King's Dominion, which had all the Hanna-Barbera characters. So it had like the Smurfs and Scooby-Doo and all those things. And so my parents had the more than their fill of the Smurfs and all those related characters for sure.
The Scooby-Doo, I could still watch that. That was one my son loved, that I loved any excuse to sit there and watch Scooby-Doo with him.
Yeah,
I still put Scooby-Doo on in the background sometimes.
He doesn't want to watch him anymore just because he's 22 and thinks he's too old. I'm not too old for him.
yeah, exactly.
I went on a Yogi Bear binge a while back.
You
That
put
was
on
Like
you
my
put
favorite comic series, my favorite cartoon series of all time. I was just so glad my kids were the right age when it came out. Was the first 3 seasons of Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
It is bloody brilliant storytelling. I like the music, like the characters, like the writing, like the jokes. That I could definitely watch again.
when he got
I
older.
tried to get mine into watching Avatar because I was feel like I'm a kid at heart in a lot of ways. So I watched it before I had kids and I enjoyed it. It is one that works for adults. The one that works for me with my kids is Gravity Falls. If
Oh,
anybody's
love
seen
That's a
Gravity
good
Falls.
series. Yeah.
that one, that's kind of, if you like weird fiction and that kind of weird stuff, like it is
Oh, yeah.
just perfect. I got that
My
the
favorite
new
part.
Book of Bill that came out recently, and that's just a lot of fun to be back in that world.
See, my favorite little section is the Duchess approves. Where Grunkle Stan is watching it and he doesn't want to get up, so he won't change the channel. Oh well.
That's a fun one.
When he got older, he got me into Bob's Burgers, which is not a young kid's show. That show is hilarious. So
Yeah, big fan of that one as well. My youngest, when he was born in August, and October came around and he was still little and didn't talk or do anything. So we dressed him up as a burger, and my wife and I dressed up. I shaved down to the mustache and got the shirt and the apron, and she got the red shirt and the glasses, and we did Bob and Linda in a burger. And so that was a
that's
fun
funny.
Halloween.
That's funny. Anything else, guys? It's called the Children's Horror by Patrick Barb. And
Yep, it's out now. It's Northern Republic Press, and it's 10 stories of weird, strange, kid TV inspired.
yeah, and I
horror.
don't think I mentioned it's on Kindle, but it's on Kindle Unlimited as well, right?
It is on Kindle Unlimited as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's very easy to pick up if you want to give it a shot.
Is there an
Slapping
audio?
it in the queue as we speak.
Yeah, is there an audiobook version, or will there be? Do you know?
Not in the plans right now, but it's something that I would definitely be interested in having down the road. Especially because I think the characters are not as cartoony in some of the stories. In some of the stories they are, and I think it'd be a fun one. Even if it's just one narrator, like somebody could have a lot of fun with the characters there.
One of our live viewers, Donna, wants to know if you're a fan of Peter Straub.
I have not. That is a gap in my reading, actually, and I have all of his books back on the shelves there, just from listening to other authors that I admire. So Langan, Laird, Paul Tremblay, and all those people talking about Straub. And so I've read a couple short stories, in different anthologies where his works appeared. But yeah, I think I need like a Straub month or something, or a Straub 6 months or something, where I just kind of dive into everything.
Well, holes happen because there are a lot of books out there, a lot of damn good books out there, and the TBR just keeps getting higher and higher
Every day.
Always.
Yeah. It's my TBR and my to watch list. It grows and grows all the time. I do this column for Shortwave magazine called Your Favorite Author's Favorite Author, and the premise is basically just because that's how my TBR keeps growing. It's because authors that I admire will recommend people, and I'll say, okay, I got to read this person because I got to know where the inspiration came from. So I have to read. I like Laird Barron, so I got to read Roger Zelazny. I like Stephen Graham Jones, so I got to read Philip K. Dick because he loves Philip K. Dick, and I wanted to share that with other people. So the column is basically me just interviewing other authors about the authors that they like and talking about the work of those authors. What I found is that people are very willing to talk about other people's work and the things they admire about it, much more so than sometimes they may be to talk about their own work. And so it's a neat way, I think, into both the reading process, but also the writing process as well. And so the only problem again is I keep getting more recommendations. So the pile just grows and grows.
Yeah, that's the main complaint about this show too. We keep adding to their TBRs. So
as long as they're not sending you the bill, I think you're in good shape, right?
Right, exactly. Well, thanks for being on, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy
it.
to be on. Happy to be back and chatting again.
And so the Children's Hour is the name of the book. And for those who didn't catch it the first time around, the previous collection is I just blinked on it. Sorry.
Pre-approved for hunting.
Right.
Pre-approved for hunting.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna go eat supper, and appreciate everybody watching and listening. Patrick, thanks for being here.
Sure thing. Happy to
And
be here.
yeah, I'm gonna have Brian Evanson on soon, and who else is coming up? Kenneth Height is coming up 2 weeks from today. And like I said, just check the calendar on the. I've got that link in the show notes, so you guys can check that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Patrick.